The Audi A6 is the staple family car, room for the kids, the dogs and half the house. And yet more and more people are happy to part with even more of their hard-earned cash to buy the SUV equivalent. Is there really a need though? I mean, most SUVs never even see the off-road, so do you really need to spend more than the Audi A6 offers? Let's have a look around this thing and figure it out. My name's Tom and you're watching Paragon Cars. Let's go. We're on TikTok, so if you want to see weekly updates, behind the scenes footage, and some funny stuff, click the link in the description below to follow us now. Okay, first up, the engine. This is the very familiar EA 888 2-litre turbo that you'll find in thousands of VW's products. And for good reason, it's an absolutely fantastic engine. The one in this A6 is similar to what you'd find in a VW Golf GTI, albeit mounted longitudinally instead of horizontally. Anyway, power. You get 245 horsepower and 370 Nm of torque. The dual clutch S-tronic gearbox does the shifting, and the Quattro all-wheel drive system puts the power down. 0 to 60 is done in just under 6 seconds, but can a 2-litre engine really pull a 1.8 tonne car once moving? Let's find out and do the 30 to 70 sprint. So, we managed 5.52 seconds, but what does that mean? Well, it means it's faster than some smaller hot hatches and less than a second off some properly fast ones. One thing to note though is that the saloon version of the A6 definitely benefits from being a tad lighter, as it was just as fast as a Mark III Ford Focus RS. Inside, the Audi A6 is undoubtedly pretty, but unfortunately the touchscreen addiction seems to be well and truly present here. I will say though, that as touchscreen systems go, this is definitely one of the better ones. The haptic feedback makes it feel like you're actually pressing something, and the layout itself is actually pretty easy to use. Still, a scroll wheel is better. The rear is where the A6 really shines though, as this is the Audi with proper legroom for adults. The A4 is bearable where the A6 is outright enjoyable. I could happily spend hours of my time back here without complaint. Okay, actually I have one minor niggle, and that's the fact cup holders are still optional for rear passengers. Come on Audi, this is a family car. Everyone deserves cup holders. Then the boot, it's large but also square and easy to load. You have multiple tie-down points, a 12-volt socket and even some shopping hooks. Neat. Right, let's get driving then, shall we? Oh, I've shut out the world and I am in Audi heaven. This is the thing that Audi just does so well, is just getting in and relaxing and just letting the car do all the hard work for you. The sound deadening is just perfect, steering's nice and light. The suspension, although it controls the body well, is just perfectly calibrated for UK roads. It irons out all the smaller imperfections, and then even when you go over speed bumps like this, it's just not fussed about it. Like, you know it's there, but it doesn't jolt you, it doesn't surprise you. Throttle pedal and brake pedal are pretty much perfect, I'd say. The throttle is, it's got that stereotypical, pretty aggressive initial bite to it, but it's because it's a 2-litre engine, it's trying to make it feel like it is a bigger engine. But the brake pedal is perfect. That's where BMW could really learn a thing or two. It just has a really reassuring bite to it. More about the engine though, because obviously I really like this engine, because the way it's calibrated and just its outright performance, honestly, is astonishing. No matter which car I drive with this engine in, be it a VW Golf GTI or my old Audi or any other Audi product, it just feels so torquey low down. And I mean, it is. You get the full whack at around 1500 RPM, which is crazy when you think about it. And it kind of feels almost like a 3-litre engine. If you couldn't hear it, I genuinely think a lot of people would think, yeah, this is definitely a 3-litre engine. But you just tickle the throttle and it glides up to speed, and it barely has to go above 2,000 revs to get to the speed limit. Yeah, already this is one of the most relaxing cars I've driven. What's not so relaxing though is parking, because even though this is a fairly well-spec car with a reverse camera and parking sensors, the Audi A6 is big. You know, you're talking 5 Series Mercedes E-Class kind of size. And if you live in the sticks, it's great, but when you live in London, you'll notice even when you're in the bigger spaces, you don't have much room to get in and out of the car. I mean, you can almost get to the first notch on the door in most cases. But yeah, if you're shopping at one of the big supermarkets, you'll notice fairly quickly it is maybe just a tad too big. So if you live in London, maybe go for an Audi A4 Avant instead. But if you're happy to compromise and get a much bigger, comfier car, then the Audi A6 might be the one for you. Now then, coming out of a junction, start-stop isn't on, but I can give it half throttle, see how we do. Quattro combined with that wonderful engine just rockets you up to the speed limit. I mean, the performance on tap is so much better than the numbers suggest. You think, oh, you know, 245 horsepower, good amount of torque, it's going to feel okay. But you know, it will feel compromised because this is a big heavy car. Nope, get that thought straight out of your head. This engine it's magical. The things it can do always surprises me. I mean, you look at the 30 to 70 time of the VW Golf GTI, that was, I think, I can't remember off the top of my head, I'll put it in the top right hand corner, but it was as quick as cars that have way more power than it. And that's not just because it's light. You know, there's other cars that were as light as the GTI and you know, still didn't perform the same, even with the same amount of power. So yeah, this engine is a marvel of engineering. Also very easy to work on if you want to do your own oil changes and all that kind of stuff. Also means labour's a lot cheaper. Anyway, let's reset our trip computer and see what kind of MPG we can get on the motorway. I totally forgot to research how much this can actually get. I'm guessing it's going to do about 38, using my car wizardry mind. Actually just had a look, and it is 41 miles per gallon this thing is supposedly able to do on the combined cycle. It says it can do 47 on the extra urban cycle, and this engine is pretty efficient, but yeah, physics is physics, and this is a heavy car, so I think once you're going at higher speeds, it's not going to be quite as efficient as it is around town. Hopefully though, this engine will work its magic and it'll do well. Before that, let's get to a roundabout and see how this thing handles. Does it handle like a typical Audi and just understeer at the first sign of any sporty driving? Let's find out. Okay, we're in dynamic mode. Traction control is fully off, as we don't need that. We've got Quattro to save us. Let's see how this little A6, or big A6 should I say, handles. I just love the response of this engine. It's just crazy for a 2 litre. I can't praise it enough, really. Right, second gear. Come to the corner a little bit too fast. Plant your foot. And I've turned on the tunes. But it's just so capable. And the thing is, you think it's going to understeer, but because you've got proper Quattro, that's the Torsen differential, you just plant your foot down and the car just sorts itself out. That is the one advantage of having quite a small engine up front as well. You've got less metal just sitting over the front tyres, which means it's just less inclined to understeer. And in fact, you can actually get this thing a little bit sideways, which I'll try and do later. For now though, we're going to get onto the motorway and see what kind of MPG we can get. Okay, we're in Eco now, coming onto the motorway. This is where Audis are a bit ridiculous. So once you go into Eco mode, the turbo basically feels like it doesn't come in until about 3,500 RPM. So if I just tickle the throttle now, and now the power's come in. It's quite a weird sensation because in comfort it comes in so low that it feels like a big engine. Now it feels like a 2 litre engine, but all in the name of good fuel economy. But then, once you are on the motorway, there's just no road noise. And think we're riding on fairly biggish wheels, and it's just nothing. It's crazy quiet in here. Wind noise, Audi are some of the best at getting rid of wind noise. I mean, the only Mercedes that really beats Audi's hands down is the S-Class. And then BMWs, I found that the wind noise in their newer G-Series cars is definitely lower than the previous generation, but they're still not quite at the level of big Audis. It's almost like the frequency coming into the car is so low that you can't really hear it. And yeah, you just whack the cruise control on. This car has lane assist as well, which I don't really get, because I sort of think if you've got lane assist, you should have adaptive cruise control. Otherwise, it doesn't really make sense to me. But you know, Audi like to do weird and wonderful things all the time. But yeah, visibility is good. The seats are unbelievably comfortable. Sound system. This is just the Audi standard sound system, and it gets nice and loud, so you can enjoy your tunes. But if you want more clarity from your sound, something like a Lexus Mark Levinson sound system, you are going to want to go with the B&O system, as it gets a little bit louder than the standard system, but it also just has a lot more clarity. But yeah, the standard system is fine if you just, you know, you listen to your average tunes. And yeah, no rattles, it's all quiet. It just feels like this car could do 150 miles an hour all day long. And that's what Audis are about, really. Right, talking about doing some motorway driving, let's get onto the M25 and see what kind of MPG we can manage. Look at that, positive steering. It holds the road well. Look at that, I'm catching up to this van pretty quickly. It's just the road holding of these cars is crazy these days. Wouldn't imagine of doing that kind of cornering speed in an older Audi. And the steering feels quite positive. Anyway, enough waffle. Let's go on the motorway. So, like the typical M25, we are stuck in traffic. I just wanted to show you something really cool that I've noticed though. So if you come to a stop, the engine turns off, it'll know to turn the engine back on when the car in front of you moves. So I didn't touch the throttle or anything then, but it saw the car in front of me moving and then turned the engine back on. So you don't get that horrible waiting for the engine to start thing happening with the start-stop system. And this doesn't have adaptive cruise control, so I'm guessing it's using the Audi presense to do that. Let's see if it does it again. So car in front's moving, I'm not touching anything. Yeah. I didn't even know it had that. That's pretty neat. The only downside to this start-stop system though is this isn't the mild hybrid version of the 45 TFSI. So when you come to a stop, sometimes it can be a little bit preemptive with turning the engine off, and it kind of jolts to a stop rather than coming to a smooth stop. Obviously, because we're in traffic, our MPG isn't amazing. We're still doing 37.6 though, and we've been sitting in this pretty much, so there's no doubt in my mind you'd actually get above 40 miles per gallon fairly easily in this thing, which for a big car is decent really. You know, you wouldn't get more than that out of a bigger engine. Plus, when you consider the fact, you know, when you're driving around town, this is going to be quite a bit more efficient than the bigger engines. Yeah, not a bad choice so far. Anyway, let's crack on the motorway and see what our final figure is. Oh, well, we're finally off the motorway, and we managed 38.2 miles per gallon in traffic, which is pretty decent, I'd say. I think over a longer journey, yeah, you'd easily get about 41 miles per gallon, and if you drove at like 60, 65 miles an hour, say you were going up to Scotland or something with the kids, you'd fairly easily get 45 mpg out of this thing, which I think is good enough. You got a nice big fuel tank as well, so you can do loads of miles on a single tank in this thing. Anyway, let's get this thing onto a B road and see if this Quattro A6 is any fun to drive. Okay, we're back in full attack, traction fully off in dynamic. Let's see what this Quattro Audi A6 can do. It's not not too much traffic today, so hopefully we can have a little bit of fun. Oh yes. Right, foot down. Where's the limit of grip? Very high up. See what I mean? Quattro is crazy good. The level of speed you can carry around corners. It's not far off of something like a BMW M3. Genuinely. It's really surprising. Obviously the M3 will absolutely lap rings around this thing, but I mean, it doesn't really understeer. It kind of breaks away at the front and the back at the same time. You do have to drive it slightly differently though. You can't just like rely on the front to have limits. You can't just rely on the front to have all the grip. But I mean, the limit is so high that getting to it on a public road is pretty difficult. And yeah, you can make it oversteer quite easily. You don't have to hit the brake or anything. You don't have to Scandi flick it. But look, foot flat, and it just sorts itself out. Suspension does a good job of controlling the body. There is a little bit of roll, but it's not over the top. It's another car that just never scares you, and that's what Audis are really good at, is just giving you oodles of confidence. Like brakes, you get to the 100-yard marker, just barely have to touch them, and they just slam the car to a stop. Again, just look at that. And you can see how quickly I'm catching up with people. Like, it's not inclined to oversteer, but it will if you want it to. I mean, you could take this thing to a track and you wouldn't be scared to push it, which is weird because this is an Audi. And usually you'd be scared that it's going to understeer all over the place, but they really don't do that anymore. Steering feels nice and positive, not far off of the BMW, for instance. Gearbox is razor sharp as well. This is the longitudinal version of the gearbox that's in the VW Golf R. That combined with Quattro is a pretty mean combo, actually. But, you know, the steering's really happy at this kind of angle. Feels nice and racy, this thing. For a big car, I mean, it shrinks around you so well. It's very easy to place on the road as well. Older Audis, or Audis of old should I say, they would kind of have this almost numbness to the front end of them, which made them quite difficult to place. But they've definitely sorted out the steering on these. The steering is way better than it used to be. You ask for a gear, it gives it to you. Oh, it really is brilliant. So yeah, if you want to drive like an absolute nutter, you can, and you'll keep up with pretty much any hot hatch on the market. You know, for comparison, my 140i will do about the same speed round there before the rear starts going all over the place. This, in the wet, would be a bit of a weapon. And I hate to tell the Golf R boys this, but perceivably, this definitely handles a bit better than a Golf R, which just sounds so wrong when I say it. The new one is definitely, it's got more of this personality, like more positive steering, but the Mark 7 and Mark 7.5, they have this real, just like numbness to the front end, like there's just zero steering feel in those things. This has like pretty positive steering. And you think you're driving an Audi A6 Avant, you're driving a big family tourer. This is not supposed to handle well, yet you could take this to the Nürburgring and it would feel right at home. I suppose they test them there, so it's not unexpected, but it's just the fact that it's so capable. every single time I get into a modern Audi these days, they always blow me away. When you go from Audi A4 and up, they all just seem to handle so well. What happens when we throw some bumps into the mix then? Let's get onto a smaller B road and see how it handles there. Okay, down our favourite little B road. Chuck it in. Front end feels really nice. Steering rack, you've got dynamic steering, so as you speed up, it tightens it, which makes, you have to do less turning basically to turn the car into a corner. And this is where Audis are very good. They just have this level of confidence-inspiring grip that just means you never feel like you're out of control. Right, can we hit 60 before the corner? We started a bit late, so probably not. Just about, sort of. But look at that. You can be an absolute yobbo in this thing. And it's the suspension and the quattro system that I think are the highlight for me. They just have, the car is so well damped, and when you go into a corner, it bites into the tarmac, the front and the rear bite at the same time, and you can actually feel what the car is doing. It's just weird looking at this logo and thinking, yep, that's a sporty car. Very odd indeed. Right, I'm actually having a bit of fun, so I'm going to have to go down again, I think. Look at that, you see the torque come in pretty quickly. And it's just... like the BMW M3 down here, I could go quick, but it didn't give me the same amount of confidence that this thing does. Like the limit of grip is lower, but it just... You look at the speedo and you think, oh my god, I really need to slow down. Just look at that. It's just crazy how fast you can go. I'm going to have to do it again. Right, let's try again. Look at that. That's genuine performance. That's the only thing I wish it would let you do, is take full control of the gears. But I mean, I understand it's not even an S car, so... Just that body control for such a large vehicle. I mean, I can place this thing exactly where I want it to. The thing is, when you find the limit of grip, it kind of gives you this, not false sense of security even, like, it's just good. It's just a well-balanced, well-sorted, well-damped car. It's really hard to fault these days. And I mean, obviously, if you're not, like, if you're used to driving a BMW where you can kind of just neutralise understeer with your right foot, you have to get used to this car a little bit. But if you're going slower on a wet road, you can use your right foot to drive it on the throttle, which for an Audi is just like unheard of. This thing is surprisingly good on a little road. Engine, gearbox, quattro, the chassis. You'll notice I'm not having to do that twitchy thing with the wheel to kind of feel where I'm going, because you just know what the car's doing. I mean, what other car can do that? Like, you're talking serious performance cars that are able to do that. It's as chuckable as a hot hatch is. It really is impressive. Obviously the suspension's a bit softer than a hot hatch, but it just deals with it somehow. Like, I reckon if you took this thing around the Nürburgring, you would do a lap time that would surprise a lot of people. And if you mapped this engine is like so held back from factory. You can whack a big turbo on this and you can get this thing up to like plus 500 horsepower with the right equipment. But yeah, for a family car, just awesome. Right, I am going to do a living with series on this car, which I'm going to start filming from today actually. But for now, I'm going to leave you guys with a conclusion and, give you my initial thoughts on this thing. So, do you really need to spend the extra dosh and get the SUV equivalent? Well, of course you don't. But I suppose it is up to personal preference. For me though, the A6 offers everything I'd want from an SUV, yet it does it whilst handling 10 times better. So if you are in the market for a sports utility vehicle, I urge you to please go and drive a car like this Audi A6 first, as you might end up changing your mind and saving a whole bunch of cash in the process. Anyway, as always, I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, give it a like and why not subscribe, as not only can you see more content like this, you can see everything we have for sale, which actually includes this Audi A6 Avant. Anyway, my name's Tom and you've been watching Paragon Cars. I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.